Hello again, my name's John Hampshire. I'm a cycling and running coach. Claire and I coach endurance cyclists and runners to achieve challenging goals in a healthy and sustainable way. I post a video every Tuesday, so if you like this one, please like and subscribe. A few of the recent videos have covered things like overtraining, overdoing it, and how important it is to get a balanced amount of rest and recovery. And a few people have commented on how they've found that challenging and stressful jobs can impact quite significantly on the training and the sport. Your body doesn't know whether you're getting stressed from work or getting stressed from your training. And mental stress is also a big factor. It's amazing how debilitating it can be if you're overwhelmed with your work and other aspects of life to the extent that you really struggle to perform in your training and particularly in your events. So I thought it'd be useful to do a video on how to balance the limited amount of energy that we all have to create an effective training routine and a healthy work-life balance. A friend once mentioned to me that he liked to look at things as you've got a limited amount of energy to spend each day, and you can vary how you spend that to be either more effective or less effective. Essentially what we're trying to do is optimize that balance between the energy that we have available to us and the things we want to do that use up that energy. And of course, if we have a healthy lifestyle, then we might be able to maximize the amount of energy that's available to us, or the recovery and regeneration from the activities that we're doing. We've got three variables that we can manipulate. One is how much energy we've got available, so having a healthy lifestyle, eating good nutritious food, getting plenty of sleep and recovery, and trying to minimize the external stresses that influence our lives. We need to identify and focus on the most important things so that we're optimizing the things that we are actually doing and not draining energy by doing things that aren't that important. And of course, minimizing the unhelpful things we do, the things that drain the energy unnecessarily. So what we're trying to do is optimize the amount of energy we have, use the energy as wisely as possible, and not do things that drain the energy. I find a good starting point is to make a list, maybe a list of the things that you do each day and things that you do each week, because training cycles are often best done weekly, so because you might do different things on different days. But as you know, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I like to do similar things on similar weekdays. So I like to always do a similar sort of thing on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or something like that, because in that way you can quickly work out what works and what doesn't work. And in the same way, by having a daily routine that's similar each day, then you can work out what works and what doesn't work. You don't have to have a perfect routine. You just have to have a routine, get doing something, and then gradually improve it over time. And when you've got this list, you've got a visual representation. I find that quite useful. And you can add to the list, or you can add a sort of list at the side of things that you wish you could find time to do, but you're unable to find time to do, or find energy or motivation to do. So that then you know what you're trying to fit in. You look down the list and you can put pluses and minuses next to, like pluses, things that are positive things to do, positive energy. It might be sleep, because obviously it regenerates you, so that's a positive. Your training is obviously good for you, it's good for your health, so that's a positive. Worrying, making decisions, that uses up energy. And there might be periods of time that you just waste and like maybe playing on the internet, playing on social media. That might actually have a negative influence on you mentally, or it might have a positive influence on you mentally. Obviously it's very different for different people. So go down your lists and put pluses and minuses next to each thing, or you could highlight them red and green or blue or whatever, just so that you've got some sort of overview of where you're trying to make the changes. It's worth spending some time thinking about why you want to do certain things. What's your philosophy? Why do you want to do your sport? Why do you want to train for endurance running or cycling? Because it takes a lot of time, and for a lot of people it's quite difficult. You feel like you're taking time away from other things that you should be doing, and perhaps things that you think perhaps are more important, or other people might think are more important. So you might feel you're letting people down. So if you spend some time thinking about why you're doing certain things, you can then be more confident and less likely to give up on them and let them go. And I suspect it won't take you a lot of thought to realise that being fit and healthy is actually a really positive on your life. It helps your longevity, it helps you be happy. Having that personal space helps you be happy and nicer to be around. So you've now got your list of pluses and minuses, and your habits, what you do every day, what you do every week, and you've got reasons why you want to do the positive things, and hopefully why you don't want to do the negative things. And then look for things that where you might be able to change, so that you can add in little, the things that you want to do that you maybe not unable to do, or do the things that you need to do more effectively by creating a little bit of space. Sometimes you can combine things. Maybe if you say you commute to work, you travel to work, it might be that you can do some of your training on your commute. A lot of people find this a really effective way to train, and I think the fittest I've ever been as when I commuted to work by bike, or initially when I was a runner. And of course, if you run or ridden to work, your only alternative to get home might be to run or ride. So it forces you to do that second training session of the day, which you might not do if you got home and you're tired and you just sat down in front of the telly. If you always do the same thing at the same time each day, it's easier to optimize things. If you're more efficient at doing the things that you've got to do, then you've got more time to do the things that you might just want to do, like chilling out and things like that, spending time with the family. Remember also that making decisions takes energy. So you can use a lot of energy by procrastinating, not knowing what to do. One of the things Claire and I noticed was that we spend a lot of time deciding what to cook or cooking meals. So we decided to have similar meals each day. And by doing that, we also found that we could track our nutrition more effectively, so we could have a much better diet. So we saved time on the decision process, we saved time in the preparation process, and had a much more nutritious diet. So that might be something that you can do, is making decisions up front, like the what ifs before an event. You could do what ifs before your day, and then you've got an upfront list of decisions that you can use throughout the day, and that saves you quite a lot of energy and probably quite a lot of time. And then the second thing is focusing on the things that are most important. So you need to look at where your strengths and weaknesses are and how you can work on the particular weaknesses. It might be that doing some VO2 max work makes a big difference to your overall fitness. It can bring on your FTP, and it means that if you're doing endurance rides or runs, they're at a lower proportion of your maximum, and they also don't take very long, so that can be quite an efficient way of training. Remember also that it doesn't necessarily take a lot of training to make a big difference. You might see professional athletes doing 30 hours a week of training, but a lot of people do really well on 4 or 5 hours a week of training. It's amazing how much you could do with a small amount of time. But to do that, you have to focus on the important things. Remember, what you're trying to do is identify an area of weakness and then stimulate your body to respond and address that weakness. So you only have to do enough to upset your body enough to want to change. So essentially what you're trying to do is make your body uncomfortable, and then if it's sufficiently uncomfortable, it'll adapt so that next time you do it, it'll be less uncomfortable. And that's basically all training is. You're just applying a stimulus that is enough to upset things and cause an adaptation. And then once you've got an adaptation, then you apply another stimulus, which obviously has to be a bit harder because your body's a bit fitter, and then your body adapts to that. And you mix up all these stimuli to make the gains towards your event. Remember, the strengths and weaknesses are relative to your target event. They're not just strengths and weaknesses. If you're training to do London, Edinburgh, London bike ride next year, you don't have to be fast enough to outsprint Mark Cavendish. It's a case of applying the focus where it's most effective. And also think about your work. Some of the comments on YouTube recently have been about people who've had physical jobs, and they found that they've been burnt out and had symptoms very similar to overtraining because they've tried to train and work in physical jobs. When I lived in the UK, a lot of my friends were hill and mountain runners, and they had manual jobs, but they didn't train very much. So some of them were hill farmers. When I lived in Scotland, when I lived in Edinburgh, I knew a few hill farmers, and they maybe trained 3 or 4 times a week, but they just do a really fast run. And then, of course, all the endurance work was just wandering around the fields looking after animals. If you've got a physical job, you won't be able to train as much because you're using up that energy bank, but you might not need to train as much. And it might be that you can focus on specific things that make the gain, that fill in the gaps. A couple of people that I coach recently had big events, but they had big blocks of travel beforehand. One guy's just done the Race Across France, and over the last 7 weeks before the event, he was only at home for 23 days. So it's like 3 weeks out of 7, which went less than 50% of the time. But what we did is we did a good training block before. He had a period of time when he could commute to work. He did some 3 and 5 minute efforts because that was his biggest weakness. And then he did a long ride at the weekend, but not super long because he had family commitments and other commitments to the community. And he built some fitness up, and then it was a case of trying to sustain that fitness in the short period of time he was at home. So he was balancing it around his lifestyle. He couldn't really do any training when he was away working internationally because his days were so long. So it's a case of identifying the strengths and weaknesses, looking where you can fit them into your routine, looking at the overall plan as you work towards a particular goal, and thinking, well, what can I gain now? We did a sensible periodization process. What can I gain in this period that I can then maintain in that period that'll still allow me to perform in my event? It's not perfect, but it's amazing how well you can do. And of course, that's all you've got. You've got to work with the life you have because you've got to put food on the table. So the important things to bear in mind are you've only got a limited amount of energy. Improve that energy by leading a good lifestyle. You can use that energy in the most effective way possible by cutting out the things that waste energy and focusing on the things where the biggest gains can be made. Do that on a daily basis, so you've got good daily habits, on a weekly basis, so you've got good weekly habits, and on a longer term basis, so that if you've got different periods of time when you can do more and periods of time when you can do less, you can optimize what you get out of those periods. But remember, the most important thing is to do something. Consistency is everything. The specific detail of exactly what you do is not as important as actually doing something. So get started, identify your good habits, your bad habits, where you can make changes and how you can improve. I hope you found this useful. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.